And I'm back with more Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations. This is it. The day of the final trial, and this is going to be a doozy. This is the final trial of the final game. We just have to prove what we can prove. And whatever happens, happens. Oh, are you by yourself? Oh, morning, Purvis. Mr. Nick, please tell me, what's going to happen to Mystic Maya? I'm sorry, we don't know yet. The investigation is still going on, so I wasn't allowed in the inner temple. Oh. Is Sister Iris still trying to remove the trick locks? No. She's the defendant and can't be at the inner temple. She's required to be here in court. Then how come she's not in the defendant's lobby? I have to admit, it's kind of strange. If you're looking for Iris, she's in the prosecutor's lobby. Edgeworth! What's Iris doing over there? She's going over today's testimony with the prosecutor as we speak. Testimony? You heard me. Iris is going to be testifying as a witness. What? The prosecutor is squeezing her for a confession, or so I've heard. Francisca, what are you up to? I know what you're thinking, but Francisca isn't going to be prosecutor. Then, who else would it be but Godot? Francisca is engaged in important work at the Sacred Cavern. The Sacred Cavern? You don't mean she's... Exactly. She's been out there all night trying to remove those trick locks. With the head nun's assistance, naturally. We estimate that the last of the locks should be taken care of in 3 hours. I hope everything continues so smoothly so we receive good news. Yeah, thanks. Prosecutor Godot intends to nail this case shut today. Be prepared to fight like there's no tomorrow. You don't have to tell me that. Touché. I can already see it in your eyes. You're not the same fever-ridden, frantic maniac you were yesterday. It's strange. On the way here, I decided today would be the end of things, and almost immediately I felt myself getting stronger. Interesting. Maybe you passed your cold to someone else. And with that, I leave the rest in your capable hands, partner. I still don't have answers for most of the riddles. The circumstances around the murder of Misty Faye. The impossible flight Larry claims to have seen. And what that woman was really after. I will solve them all and bring this whole tragedy to an end. Court is now in session for the trial of Iris of Hazakura Temple. Your Honor? What are you... Who, me? Well, my little brother came to visit me in my chambers. All of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, he developed a scorching fever and fainted. Therefore, I will be standing in for him. I see. So the brothers, that explains a lot. My poor brother looked a little bit pale. And not to mention he couldn't be here. It's impossible to predict what the future has in store for any of us. This is precisely what people feel need to judge the past. And we of the court have been charged with that solemn duty to pass judgment. Well said, Mr. Godot. I understood exactly what you said, and up until the end anyway. Now then, please proceed with your opening statement. Humans are fragile, fickle beings, and our hearts change with the shifting of the tides. There's only one thing that remains a constant. The bitter darkness that lies at the bottom of this muck. So, never mind, what do you mean? During yesterday's trial, the accused refused to admit her role. But today she's had a change of heart. Sister Iris of Hazakura Temple has a confession to make. Confession? The defendant? Iris, why didn't you discuss it with me first? Very well. This court will now hear the defendant's confession. Upon meeting a beautiful lady, always ask for her name and profession. That's one of my rules.
My name is Iris. I'm but a simple nun undergoing training in Hazakura.
Is there something you want to confess to?
Yes, but first I want to apologize to Mr. Wright. I can't continue lying to everyone anymore.
It's alright. What is it?
Mr. Wright, I have to admit that I did play a part in this terrible incident.
Are you actually confessing? Are you saying you were the one who murdered Elise Doden?
No, I'm not. But I dealt with the cover-up after the murder took place. After her spirit left, I took the lifeless shell of Mystic Elise and carried it to Hazakura Temple Courtyard where I deserted it.
What? Order! Witness, are you saying you were an accomplice?
Yes. That's correct.
What? 3 minutes in court, I'm already covered in cold sweat. Everyone on my planet has accomplished something. It just so happens that in this case, it's a murder. Isn't that right, Mr. Tribe? That Godot. So this is the confession? Pains me to say this, but looks like Iris's testimony was all a lie. Now then, little lady, if you don't mind, I've got a question for you. Whose crime are you trying to cover up? Iris was covering for someone? No, I'm definitely getting a creak of a paddle without a life jacket.
I've been at Hazakura Temple ever since I was a little girl. Hazakura is run by one of the branch families of the Korean tradition. One of our missions is to protect the main family.
I'm sorry, but main family?
And that's why I would dirty myself if need be to protect her. The daughter of the master, Maya Fey.
Wake up and smell the coffee.
She's what?
Order! So not only are you witness, you know the name of the murderer?
I'm terribly sorry, but it's true. I saw her commit the crime with my own eyes. And then I cleaned up the area to try and protect her.
It's ridiculous. She would never... The defense will refrain from commenting until the appropriate time. Now, witness, let's hear your testimony. What exactly happened the night of the crime? Oh, excuse me.
Yes, Your Honor.
I thought I was prepared for the unexpected, but I never imagined the case would wind up in this direction.
I went to the inner temple that night and I saw it all happen. I saw Mystic Elise strike Mystic Maya with her staff. While Mystic Maya was still stumbling, Elise moved to deliver a fatal strike. She desperately tried to defend herself and stole the weapon. It was only in self-defense. You can't blame her for that.
So it was in self-defense.
Mystic Elise was the one who attacked first. That's why I tried my best to protect her.
You moved the victim's body to the temple so that Maya wouldn't be suspected. Isn't that right? It's not bad. You've got the instincts of a true criminal. Something's not right.
I'm sure it was established yesterday that Iris never went to the inner temple.
And that the person who did go was that woman. Iris even admitted it. Now then, Mr. Wright, please proceed.
Again, because I'm in a slight cold, I'm trying to do the judge's voice, but really, the judge's voice is basically my voice right now.
Anyway. Alright, third statement. She moved to deliver a fatal strike.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. She threw down her staff and reached into her robe for a weapon.
Wait a minute. What was the weapon?
It was some kind of dagger.
A dagger? And Elise tried to stab her with it? To kill Miss Fey?
Yes, exactly.
You look like I did after I mistakenly took a swig of Worcestershire sauce. Or, as they say, Worcestershire. Or Worcestershire, I guess. I don't know. All three kind of work and kind of don't. You have a problem with a testimony. Do I have a problem? Your Honor, I have a small problem with the witness's testimony. You do? But this witness is your own client. Well, nevertheless. That's fine. Witness, let's add your last statement to the testimony.
Yes,
Aye! It's my job to say that. Listen, Gramps, I won't say it again. Final judgment will be rendered by me. Let's continue. Sister Iris, there's something strange about your version of events.
what?
Throwing her staff away would make no sense.
But all you can do with a staff is hit someone.
Naturally, you wouldn't know this, but the victim's staff had a special feature about it. As you can see, it's a sword.
What?
At least Donan really wanted to kill Maya Fey, she wouldn't have needed to use a separate dagger. Not when she'd already had a beautiful blade in her hands already. Well, what do you have to say? That was an impressive bit of investigating, Wright. I never would have thought there was a sword hidden there. But even so, how should I put this? A long sword is unwieldy, thus ineffective in close quarters. That's why maybe she chose a dagger over the blade. Well, anyway, the type of weapon she chose isn't what it's important. The important thing is she tried to kill Maya Fey. As long as there's nothing strange about that, there's no problem with her testimony. But there is something strange about this whole thing. Well, Mr. Wright, this prosecution has a point.
Very well.
The defense will now present evidence to back the argument.
Mr. Wright,
I have another piece of evidence that shows the testimony can't be trusted. Because Elise Donan would never try to kill Maya Fey. Elise Donan would never have attacked Maya Fey.
how could you be so sure?
Because the victim's real name was Misty Fey. Fey?
No! Not Misty.
Who is this Misty Fey? Is she related to... Misty Fey is the master of the Korean channeling technique. She is also the mother of Maya Fey.
Are you serious? Is it really true, Mr. Wright? Was she actually Mystic Misty?
There's no doubt about it. Looks like Iris had no idea.
I can hardly believe it.
The idea that she would try to kill her only daughter, one she hadn't seen in 17 years. Perhaps the prosecution can offer some explanation. Order! Upon first hearing of the witness's testimony, it seems natural enough. However, in light of some facts that have just been presented, one, that the victim supposedly threw away a sword during a fight, and two, that the two people battling to the death were mother and daughter, despite the facts being believable when taken on their own. When taken together, this entire story is difficult to believe. Listen, there's nothing in this world that's impossible, except for one little thing. What's this one little thing? You still don't get it. You think maybe my beans are under-roasted, but you have no idea. Could you get to your point? I heard this witness confession this morning, just as I had taken my first sip of my 8 cup. You're going to ruin my health, my friend. or you're going to ruin your health. I get the feeling he doesn't care. After hearing this woman's confession, I had a detective who loves investigating sent to the scene of the crime. And he discovered this little bounty. Is that the dagger? Obviously, but you do notice something else. There appears to be blood on it. Where'd you find that? I didn't see that when I investigated. Did you investigate the pine tree at the crime scene? What? The pine tree? His dagger was stuck in the back side of it. When the last blow was struck, ending the violent battle, this little baby was thrown in the direction in the back of the pine tree. Which means the blood on this dagger belongs to the victim. Were you even listening? I first heard this confession this morning, as I took my first sip of my 13th cup. Didn't you say 8th a minute ago? I didn't have enough time to get the blood analyzed. The court accepts the dagger into evidence. Furthermore, I order a blood test to be performed immediately. This, my sweetheart. Make sure you treat her right. Get this piece of evidence to the crime lab for testing. Now then, the testimony we've just heard has a numerous amount of unbelievable aspects. However, after having found the very dagger, I believe we can consider her testimony to be credible. Cute girls never lie. Never. In any case, witness, if you could testify again.
About what?
About the incident you saw. The battle between the two women.
Of course. Mystic Maya stumbled briefly after being hit on the head with a staff. But then she dodged Mystic Elise's next attack and stole her weapon. Suddenly, Mystic Elise was the one on the defensive with her back on the stone lantern. That's when Mystic Maya stabbed her. She managed to fling the knife away, but she collapsed.
That's a very heartbreaking story.
I don't know if there was any bad feelings between them, but it had been 17 years since her disappearance. Perhaps they simply didn't recognize each other.
That seems reasonable. Now then, Mr. Wright, proceed with your cross-examination. So, fourth statement. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Something about you just isn't right today.
What?
Until now, I didn't think you were the type to make such a careless mistake. However, this testimony has quite a few contradictions.
What do you mean? What's wrong with my testimony?
According to you, Maya Fey stabbed the victim while she had her back to the stone lantern.
That's right.
But in that case, the victim would have been stabbed in the stomach. I think so. But according to the autopsy report, the cause of death was blood loss from a stab wound to the back. This proves the victim was stabbed from behind, not the front. Sister Iris, it appears another seed of doubts sprouted from your testimony. What is the meaning of this? It's simple. People are like books. We develop the front and back. Is that all you have to say? I can also say darkness loves to play with your mind. Could you please knock it off with the proverbs and metaphors? The point is, too much of this testimony doesn't make sense. Throwing away a useful staff, the people fighting being mother and daughter, and now she falsely claims the victim was stabbed in the stomach. There's certainly some inconsistencies. Well, Iris, what about it?
Well, it's just...
If you ask me, you're just being too naive about the whole thing. What do you mean? There are 253 distinct types of bitterness in coffee, but to pick out each one requires total concentration. Were you really concentrating on what the witness actually said? Explain yourself. The witness was quite unambiguous with her own ambiguities when she said that the garden was dark and she couldn't see clearly. The human mind needs one thing to see clearly, and that's light. Light? By the way, do you know, Hazakura has a rule that on nights when an acolyte is in inner temple training, the stone lantern in the garden must be kept lit. I did wonder what the stone lantern was there for. Well, if that's true, shouldn't the witness have been able to see the crime more clearly? Normally, yes. But according to the head nun, on the night of the crime, it was impossible to light the stone lantern. Impossible? It hadn't been used for some time, and the wick was no good. In other words, it had been nearly pitch black in the garden at night. There could have been some faint light coming from the training hall, but that's all. Most enlightening. Yes, that illuminating fact has chased all those contradictions away. If the staff was dropped, it would have been difficult to see. It also explains why they didn't recognize each other. We can't see the demons that lurk in the night. That's why humans are weak. Isn't that right? Order! Here, Your Honor. Let me present this stone lantern as evidence. Maybe this will rekindle a flame of truth in your mind. Why is the judge just sitting there? What's wrong? Was the flame too hot? This lantern, there's something written on it. It's written in blood! Oh no. He didn't know that yet. Written in blood. It says Maya upside down! What the?
Yes, that's right. After being cornered and stabbed by Mystic Maya, she didn't fall down right away. She must have been writing that on the stone lantern behind her, with the blood that was draining out of her body.
Certainly seems that way. Hang on. Just a minute. What are you talking about? What do you mean, what are we talking about?
We're talking about the message written in blood.
Nonsense! It's a lantern. This clean as a whistle. Could it be? He can't see the bloody writing at all? No, I think about it. He did say something to me yesterday. My eyesight's pretty messed up. Even with these huge goggles on my head, I still can't see everything. So that's what he meant. In any case, it's obviously an important clue. We now know the crime scene was dark, and that the victim scrawled this message on the stone lantern. Well, Mr. Godot, anything further? Mr. Godot? Okay then, let's move on. He's literally shaking, and somehow I don't think it's from caffeine overdose. I believe it's now been established that Miss Donim was killed by Maya Fey. Just wrong! Now it's time to turn our attention to you.
Yes, sir.
After the victim died, you did something, didn't you? Let's hear it. We're all ears.
After Mystic Elise died, I called out to Mystic Maya. I thought it was my duty to protect the future master of the tradition. So I removed the body from the inner temple by myself. I dragged it behind me all the way across Dusky Bridge. Then I used the snowmobile to carry it back up to Hazakura Temple and... I used the Shishito to alter the way it looked.
So you moved the body?
Yes, I was raised at Hazakura. I owe a great deal to the Fey clan. But even so, I never imagined that Elise Donan was actually Misty Fey. I've committed a terrible sin.
Terrible trick of fate. I believe you were looking for a twist of fate.
I intended to return to the inner temple after taking care of the body, but...
You were spotted by the head nun.
Yes, and that's why I couldn't go back.
Your story makes sense. Mr. Wright, go ahead with your cross-examination. Two, three. The snowmobile. I knew it'd show up sooner or later.
Yeah, I had the key. I used the snowmobile to travel from Hazakura to Dusky Bridge.
This is the part in question the other day. Should I ask her for more details? You really did move her body by snowmobile. Then there should be tracks left in the snow, right? Well, naturally you'd expect them. This picture was presented yesterday. Are these the tracks from the other side, from that ride?
Yeah, I think they are.
But I can only see one set of tracks.
I don't see what's so strange about it. Snow was still falling when I left.
Snow is still falling.
That's when the murder took place. It had already stopped. That's why there were such fresh-looking tracks.
How about it, Mr. Wright? What do you think? When the murder took place, the snow had already stopped? That doesn't make sense if you stack it up against the other evidence. Your Honor, I'd like that statement she just made added to the testimony. Does it have something to do with this case? All will be made clear if you allow her statement to be added. This should be fun. Let's get this snow business cleared up, shall we?
Yes, sir.
Ah, crap. Damn it. Iris is full statement. God damn it. Ah. Okay. So fourth statement. Okay. See, they always put me in a weird spot there. Let's see. Alright, 1, 2, 3. There we go. Got it this time. You claim the snow had already stopped by the time the murder occurred? I'm sorry, but that's not possible.
What?
This is the weather data for the night of the murder. According to this, the snow didn't stop until 10:50. But you couldn't have crossed the Dusky Bridge at that time.
Why do you say that?
Because 5 minutes before the snow stopped, Dusky Bridge was struck by lightning and caught on fire.
What? The bridge was on fire?
You don't mean to say you didn't know about it? It was because of the lightning strike that the bridge burned down.
But it can't be.
Looks like you still haven't figured it out. No matter how hard you try to deceive or conceal the truth, you can't pull the wool over the eyes of a real defense attorney. Order! The bridge was already on fire when the incident took place. That's right, the inner temple was already cut off from the world. There's no way you could have crossed the bridge, body or no body. Even my patience has its limits. Any further lying and I will find you in contempt of court. Do you have anything to say for yourself? The only person here who could have truly contemptible is you. Old man. How dare you! Whether the witness lied or not doesn't mean squat right now. Squat? The important thing now is to find out the truth, isn't that right? Well, of course, but whether it was snowing or not snowing, whether the bridge was burning or not, there are two facts that can't be disputed. the body of Elise Jonim was discovered at Hazakura Temple. And second, the head nun, Sister Bikini, witnessed Iris desecrating her body. He makes a good point.
That's right. I'm not lying.
What are you claiming this time?
I wasn't myself at all that night, so my memory's still a bit hazy.
You've stood on that witness stand and testified this entire time. Are you telling us your memory of that night is hazy? It's only human to err. You're so perfect, maybe you can explain it.
What is it?
When the murder happened, the bridge was already burned down. But somehow the body traveled across the bridge and was found in the temple courtyard. Perhaps you have some kind of perfect explanation to that little magic trick.
Well, not exactly, no. There's gotta be another way to cross that bridge.
But unless I can demonstrate it, we'll never know the truth. Looks like the defense is not prepared to offer a suitable explanation. You see what I mean? In other words, you're in no position to suggest that this lady's testimony isn't the truth. All right, then. We'll hear your testimony once more.
About what?
You've admitted that you've moved the body. Nevertheless, your prior testimony contains a rather large inconsistency. Please add an explanation for that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Will this be your final testimony?
Other than walking over the bridge, there's no way to move the body. So, I must have just gotten confused. Was the snow still falling? Does it really matter that much? Or are you saying there's a way to cross a burning bridge?
So it was just a misunderstanding. This is a photo of Dusky Bridge after it was burning. It was taken this morning after the incident. Ah, it was certainly burned to a crisp, and one of the suspension wires even snapped. It's amazing the whole bridge didn't fall. Clearly, it would be impossible to carry a corpse across the bridge in this condition. Unless I do something to discredit this testimony, it's going to be deemed as the truth. And Maya will be accused of murder. I'm only going to say this one more time. It is only human to err. And only humans can spot the error of our ways. The more sense he makes, the less sense he makes. All right. Please begin your final cross-examination. Stupid phone. A dead body flying over a burning bridge. I wouldn't exactly rule out the possibility. What? You saying it's possible? Don't make me laugh. The only thing that's possible about your claim is you've been pulling it out of thin air. I don't know about that. In any case, we have a witness who did see it happen. What? Who is it? Who is this witness? I can't chicken out here. I gotta leap on the attack and go. Miss Elise Donham's brilliant and highly gifted apprentice, Lorice. Brilliant, highly gifted. Remember what he said in his testimony. That night he was at the Mountain Shack, Heavenly Hall. And that's when he witnessed the event. I think you've all seen this sketch before. An exact drawing of what he witnessed that night. Are you serious? Today's not April Fool's Day, is it? Mr. Wright, are you seriously claiming the victim flew through the air? Are you using this pathetic scribble to support your argument? Uh-oh. Judge looks he's about to blow a gasket. Well, try. There's nowhere for you to hide now. Other than looking like he was drawn by a 6-year-old, the sketch proves nothing. I'm pretty sure it does, and I'm going to prove it. Listen, I know your tricks. You're trying to turn this whole thing upside down. If you're so eager to turn this case upside down, why don't you start with this sketch? Upside down? Why do you say that? Alright then. Let's hear the defense's theory. What exactly is this sketch trying to show? I don't think old Whiskerface is going to forgive any mistakes. Alright, Phoenix. Look carefully. Think it over. The sketch is drawn by Larice is...
Something is obviously funny about the sketch.
I'm no art critic, but I can see that.
No, that's not what I meant, Your Honor. Larice Donham stated it over and over, that this sketch was exactly as he saw it. However, if we're to believe his testimony, then this sketch contradicts reality as we know it. Contradicts reality?
This is getting interesting. Looks like you're back to that finger-pointing thing again. Okay, Trite, what exactly contradicts it?
It's the wire connecting to the bridge.
The wire? Is that the thing that contradicts reality?
It is indeed.
Then show us the reality that supposedly conflicts with. Show us something that points out the sketch contradicts reality. That's a photo of Dusky Bridge.
Now compare the sketch to the photo for a minute. In the sketch, the wires appear to be above the guard wires. But in the actual bridge,
Jumping Jehoshaphat, the wires are
below the guard wires.
Order!
This sketch is somewhat different than what depicts in the photo. However, isn't it likely the artist just saw it wrong? Or perhaps he drew it wrong?
Either way, it sounds like you're just stalling.
With someone like Larice, I admit a mistake is definitely possible. But that begs the question, why did he make a mistake? What was the reason?
Would you say you know the answer to that?
Listen, think back, okay? Remember what Larice was doing when he witnessed the event. He was at the Heavenly Hall waiting for a lover who was never going to come. He waited and waited and finally laid down. But then, lightning shoots from the sky and sets the bridge aflame. Now ponder what sort of position Larice must have been in at the time. He was lying on his back, which is why he remembers the scene the way he did. He was lying on his back, but it does. The reason the wires in the sketch go up instead of down.
Wait!
Larice Donham witnessed the events while lying on his back face up. The scene he saw was upside down.
So then,
this sketch should actually... I think you get it. The correct way to view his sketch is like this. This is how it should actually look. The victim's body wasn't flying across the bridge or above the bridge. It was actually swinging below. That's right. Just like a pendulum.
Order!
Of all the things to say, a pendulum? The bridge was burning to a crisp. There was no way to get across it. But if the body had been found at the inner temple, it would have caused problems. This is where the criminal decided to take a gamble. They used the burning bridge to get the body across to the other side. And a pendulum was the only other way to do it.
Let's think about this for a minute, shall we?
Dusky Bridge is about 20 yards long, which means that about as far from the inner temple as the opposite cliff. That sounds right. In order to cover that distance with a pendulum, you'd need a rope at least 10 yards long. You'd have to plan ahead. The lightning strike that night could have only been accidental, so it doesn't make sense that the culprit would have prepared it beforehand. So then, they didn't have to get the rope ready. The rope was already in front of them.
What?
I'm saying it was just a matter of using what was already there. In that case, Mr. Wright, please give us an explanation. What makes you think the criminal had the rope? And the meaning of this is, if you want to know, that's hanging right there in front of your beard. This is the wires from the bridge. When the lightning strike hit the bridge and was set on fire, one of the suspension wires came loose. The criminal didn't have any time to waste, so they tied the wire around her body. And because there was simply no other way to move the body. You okay there, buddy? Mr. Godot! Seems Mr. Godot was more focused on his coffee. Seems the odds of there being a roper readily available were very high. Unless I suppose it's not an impossibility after all. Possible or impossible, that's not the question we need to ask. There's only one question. Did it really happen? Try it. I wonder if you can prove what happened. Do you have any actual evidence? Before I present my evidence, let me review what we know so far. According to this photo, one of the wires snapped. Looking at the map, you can see it was the one from the inner temple. So then, this spot is where the criminal... Yes, precisely. Now let us consider the body's movement by looking at the overhead map again. If the body was pushed from here, it would drop in the opposite bank approximately this point. Did you say drop? Well, they must have failed to catch the body. What makes you think that happened? Because I have evidence to suggest her body dropped some distance. What kind of evidence? Take a look at this autopsy report. It says here that her body fell about 10 feet after her death. 10 feet? That's most likely the height difference between the two sides. The body overswung due to forward momentum, and then came loose and fell about 10 feet. Then as a result of the landing impact, this crystal sphere was knocked loose. That's... Yes, this blood-stained amethyst crystal is the one that came off her staff. And even more important is the place where the crystal sphere was found. Indeed, I believe it's already marked on the overhead map. The crystal was found... Precisely. It's the very spot where the pendulum would arrive. This explains your theory quite well. You provided us with a way the body could have been moved. An impressive deduction. Most impressive. I thought this cold coffee might help cool you down. What's the meaning of this, Mr. Godot? That was a dark and bitter guess you made. But you forgot about one thing. What would that be? The aroma. Huh? A coffee's most reliable accomplice is its deep and profound aroma. Huh? The rest of the court doesn't speak Coffinese. Do you want to elaborate? The criminal had sent the body to the other side. Then naturally, there must have been an accomplice lying in wait. An accomplice? The criminal wasn't able to cross Dusky Bridge, so who collected the body? What do you have to say to that, Mr. Wright? Mr. Godot's correct. This is not the work of a single person. You know what you must do. The body couldn't have been made at Tahazakura Temple. Very well then, if you please, Mr. Wright. Who was the person who received the body? It can only be you, Sister Iris. What? Oh! But I don't see why you're so surprised.
The only way to transport the body from Dusky Bridge is by snowmobile. But with her bad back, Sister Bikini couldn't pick up a body like that. You're the only one who could have managed it. Trite. Were you even listening to her testimony? On the night of the crime, this little cutie pie was on cleanup duty in the inner garden. I haven't forgotten, but of you, this witness was also seen at Hazakura Temple, desecrating the corpse of the victim. Strange indeed. It's almost as if, on that night, there were two different places at the same time. Sister Iris, let me ask you something. Why didn't you mention it when you first gave your testimony?
Mention what?
The pendulum, of course. Using the sketch drawn by an eyewitness, I have established how the body was moved, which means it's now a fact that this occurred, something you should have already known.
I have no idea. I don't know anything about it.
But the body couldn't move, or couldn't have been passed along to the other side without your help. So you should have known about it. In fact, it would have been impossible for you to be clueless about the whole thing. Unless you were not really Iris to begin with.
What? How can you say that, Mr. Wright?
What? What kind of nonsense is this?
You're saying the witness isn't Iris of Hazakura Temple?
Are you serious?
You mean
this woman is... There's no one besides Iris who could have received that corpse that night. Now I get it. Now I know why I've been sick to my stomach. Why her whole demeanor changed so suddenly from yesterday. And why she's trying to pin this murder on Maya. The woman standing here at the witness stand. Her real name. I never thought I'd utter your name again. Let alone see you. It's been a long time. Dahlia. Hawthorne! Sister Iris had a twin sister. And you're looking at her, Miss Dahlia Hawthorne. That name rings some distant bells, but bells nonetheless. It's just your imagination. This file contains all the relevant data about Dahlia Hawthorne. I remember now. That case 5 years ago.
My name's Dahlia Hawthorne. I just want to say, it's an honor for me to be in your noble presence.
The honor is all mine. No, the honor is all mine. But according to this, Dahlia Hawthorne is already dead. It says her execution was carried out last month. So what? Death has no meaning in this courtroom. What? Order!
Wait a moment. How can you... My sister's already dead. What kind of...
You of all people already understand, after all. The blood of the master of the Korean channeling technique flows in your body. The Korean channeling technique? You already heard that? That's right. You're not Dahlia Hawthorne herself. You're the spirit of Dahlia, currently inhabiting the body of a spirit medium. What an exciting story. But quite impossible. You're asking us to buy that Dahlia Hawthorne just happened to be channeled by someone on the very night of the murder to a temple where her twin sister was? Well, if you're going to put things that way, then yes. You're supposed to believe a coincidence like that just happens? Naturally, it's no coincidence. The whole thing was part of a plan from the very beginning. It's all written right here in these instructions. These instructions were written by your mother, Morgan. And part of the plan was for Dahlia Hawthorne to be channeled. That night, there were 2 irises at Hazakura Temple. 2 of them. Even at the time of the channeling was planned out, as soon as you hear the lights out bell. In other words, 10 p.m. However, Iris was seen before dinner time. That means that Iris, the dinner, was the real one. And the Iris who gave me the hood was also the real one. Meaning that the Iris Sister Bikini saw was someone else dressed as her. Namely, Dahlia Hawthorne. Do you even know what you're saying? This whole channeling the spirit of Dahlia Hawthorne business? It's true you found the plans to talk about it. However, the one thing's perfectly clear. The witness currently standing here is the real Iris. What? Calm down and remember what you know about the night of the crime. After meeting Sister Bikini, the Dahlia Hawthorne that had been channeled would have been stranded at the inner temple due to the lightning strike. It was later that the body was moved. That's right. Naturally, that would mean that the Iris that received the body was the real Iris. Are you with me so far? Yes. After being notified of what happened, the police came to Hazakura Temple's main hall. There they found Iris in her room and arrested her. And ever since, she's been under police supervision at the detention center. I can't deny any of that.
Thank goodness. It looks like he's finally convinced.
Something still seems off, way off. I'm still not convinced that the Iris here is the same one. I suppose you're about to say something really ridiculous? Like the real Iris and the spirit of Dahlia somehow switched places. Switched places? To be perfectly honest, there are still quite a few things I don't understand, but I do know that unless we confirm the witness's identity, we can't continue this trial. She doesn't have the spiritual power needed to channel Dahlia, which means they must have switched places somewhere. Well, Mr. Wright, since the time she was arrested at Hazakura Temple, has there been any chances for Iris to switch places? Your Honor, I think there may have been one chance. Yesterday, for a few minutes, her whereabouts were unknown. Unknown? What do you mean? What I mean is, there was a span of time in which Iris was able to move freely, unsupervised. Well, who was it? Who would give a murder suspect time to move freely? I'm sorry. I know you didn't mean to. The person who gave Iris that chance. This is Miles Edgeworth, isn't it? Your Honor, there was a fairly large earthquake yesterday, was there not? An earthquake? Who could I have? She fled. She escaped. We went to the inner temple right away. And it's true, Iris was already there. However, they'd already switched places by that point. When I arrived at the training hall, I was met by none other than Dahlia Hawthorne. That's quite enough already. Now see here. No judge in his right mind would consider the idea of... Be quiet. It's been a long time, Mr. Judge. That voice. Guess I'll have to ask again. Upon meeting a beautiful lady, always ask for her name and profession. That's one of my rules.
Dahlia Hawthorne. And my current profession?
Permanently retired. So you're not going to bother hiding it anymore, huh? Why should I?
After all, I'm dead. There's really nothing you could do to punish me. What is going on here?
Dahlia Hawthorne.
I never thought we'd meet again.
I never thought we'd meet like this. But this time, I'll end it. For her, and for myself.
Oh, fucking hell. This case is far from over. But I need to call it an episode. And I will see you next time.